Welcome to the very first episode of our new show, ModernFilmFX, the show where we teach you how to use cool effects in your own budget films, while at the same time giving you a knowledge of film and vocabulary. Today we'll be taking a look at a quick short we threw together, and then be guiding you through the steps that we use to get this look across by using nothing but your editor's built-in plugins, so there's no unnecessary costs. And we'll be mimicking the look of the Magic Bullet Mojo effects a little bit, but expanding more on it and how you can customize it to your own liking. So first of all, I'm just going to show you the first few seconds of the short we threw together with no effects added, so you can see the difference between the film effect we're about to teach you and how it looks earlier. Alright, so after showing you that, I'll now show you what it looks like with the effects added. But before you watch this, I want you to know that we threw this together in 15 minutes or so, somewhere around there. So I know it's not that great, but I hope you can get the idea of the effect across. And also, as we said earlier, you can customize it however you want to your liking. We'll be teaching you that later on. Hi.
What are you doing?
I'm obviously acting in an action film, Andy.
Okay then.
Alright, so there it was. So as I said earlier though, you can customize it for however you want. We went for the more cool feel to give it more of a action look, because most action films do go for the cooler look. But of course you can go for the warmer feeling, or really anything you want. Okay, so I'll be breaking this down into 3 different sections. First, your camera settings. Second, adding the effect itself. And third, what you should render out as in rendering settings, and we'll go over all of that. Man, I have to remember a lot of words. Alright, so let's get right into the first section, your camera settings. So your camera settings may differ depending on if you have a DSLR or a professional camera or a consumer camera. It'll be different, but I'll try to go over all of the different areas so it'll best fit what camera you have. So first of all, what we did was we set our camera settings to 24p, which is 24 frames per second, which is typically what most action movies use because it gives it more of a cinematic feel, because 24 frames per second is actually the closest your eye can get to seeing motion. Anything before that and your eyes can tell that it's just pictures put together. So that's where 24 frames per second came in. But depending on your camera make, it might not have a setting where it says 24p. It might say something like cinema mode. I know on my Vixia HF200, if you go into the function and up to camera settings, it says cinema mode at the top or far right. And right now we're filming on the Rebel T2i, and if you go to the top left, I forget what the button is, but if you click that and you go in there, that's where you'll find how to change it to 24p. So not all cameras do have this option, but you won't be lacking that much by not filming in that as long as you render it out properly. But it is always better to film the same as you render. Okay, so the second thing we did after changing our settings to 24p is we made it so our camera has no internal filters on or any color corrections that might modify the contrast or anything, because this overall will make it a lot easier to color correct later on in post-production, because we want the image to be as flat as possible so we can modify it as much as we can. Although not all cameras do have the ability to do this, but if you do, most DSLRs do have this option, so try to do that if you can. But as I said earlier, not all these are necessary. They just get across a better look overall, because most of the work is done in the post-production, but I am trying to help you out in all possible ways. Okay, so for the third thing that we did, to really get that cinematic look across, what you're going to want to do is get as much shallow depth of field as possible, which means lowering your aperture down to about like f1.8 or however low you can get depending on what lens you're using. The lens we're using right now is a 50 prime lens, so we can go down to 1.8, which is what we use for most of our dialogue shots and close-up shots. But for the long shots, what we did was we raised it up to about 3.5, just because there's more space and shallow depth of field doesn't tend to look as good in long shots. So that's why we did that. And secondly, after you have your aperture set, then you're going to want to modify your ISO and shutter speed. What you should do is go for as fast of a shutter speed as possible. We had it set to about 1/160th per second or 1/250th per second, because the higher your shutter speed, the more crisp your footage will look. And after that, you will set your ISO. Try to keep your ISO under 400. It's better to have a lower shutter speed than have your ISO go above 400, unless there's always different circumstances that make certain things better. But basically, keep that as a general rule. Try not to let your ISO go above 400. Alright, so that clears up our first section of things, the camera settings. So now we'll get into the second section, the post-production aspect of things, actually adding the effect itself.